She begged him to leave her, but he carried her in his arms for 3 days using an exoskeleton. The battlefield stank of burning metal and seared flesh. Ash fell from the sky in soft flakes that could almost have been mistaken for snow, if not for the heat that scorched the lungs. Sergeant Elias Ward had long since grown numb to the endless ruin of war, but the sound that pierced through the haze, the faint whimper of someone alive, snapped his senses sharp. He was trudging back from the wreckage of a downed crawler mech when he heard it. His exoskeleton, an old, dented Mk4 with hydraulics that groaned under every step, kept him moving when his own body wanted to collapse. He turned toward the sound, sweeping rubble aside with the machine's augmented strength until he saw her. A girl, no, not a soldier, not one of theirs at all. She was alien. Her skin was pale, nearly translucent, veins glowing faintly beneath it like rivers of blue fire. Chains still clung to her wrists, broken but heavy. Her body trembled where she lay crushed beneath a fallen support beam. Her eyes flicked open when Elias loomed over her. They were luminous, impossibly large, filled with both fear and defiance. She rasped words in broken standard. "Leave me." Elias crouched, the exoskeleton servos whining. He shoved the beam aside and scanned her condition.
Broken ribs.
Internal bleeding. One leg shattered. She had no chance of walking. No chance of crawling. Without help, she'd die in an hour. "I'm not leaving you," Elias said simply. The girl's voice came again, weak but urgent. "Soldier, too far. Carry me, you die. Leave me here." Her body shook with effort, as if the words alone were costing her the last of her strength. Elias should have walked away. Orders were clear. Regroup with his unit, retreat to the evac point. But Elias Ward had never been good at following orders when a life was on the line. He slipped his arms beneath her. The exoskeleton servos took most of the burden, but the weight wasn't just physical. It pressed down on him like the choice itself was crushing. She gasped when he lifted her, weak hands pushing at his chest. "Fool," she whispered. 3 days' walk impossible. "Not for me," Elias grunted and started moving. The wastelands stretched endless before them. Charred plains littered with wreckage, forests reduced to skeletal husks, rivers poisoned to sludge. Every step Elias took was a gamble. His exoskeleton was old, patched together with scavenged parts. The hydraulics were rated for 40 hours of sustained use. He needed 72. By the first nightfall, her protests had grown hoarse. "You carry me, you die," she kept repeating. "Your machine break." Elias only adjusted his grip, tucking her closer to his chest. "Then I'll crawl. Not putting you down." Something flickered across her face then. Confusion, almost anger, but underneath it, something else. Something softer. On the second day, the storms came. Ash clouds rolled in fast, whipped by winds that howled across the ruined land. The exoskeleton's joints clogged with grit, servos screaming with every motion. Elias stumbled, nearly falling, but caught himself before he dropped her. "Put me down," she whispered again weakly. Her voice was barely audible above the wind. "You can't." Elias tightened his jaw, eyes narrowed against the storm. His whole life, he had carried burdens, comrades bleeding out in trenches, civilians too weak to run. This girl was no different. Except she wasn't his people. She was the enemy's slave, maybe even one of them. Saving her could mean treason. And yet, when she shifted in his arms, he realized she was no longer struggling. Her hands, frail and trembling, had curled into the chest plating of his exosuit. Not in resistance. In fear of being let go. Elias bent his head close so she could hear him through the storm. "What's your name?" Silence, then a rasp. "Leora." Leora. Elias repeated, steady. I'm Elias. And I'm not letting you die here. For the first time, her eyes closed not from pain, but in something like trust. The third day was the worst. Elias' water supply was almost gone. His rations he had crushed into powder and mixed with drops for her, coaxing her to swallow despite her injuries. His own stomach gnawed at itself, but he ignored it. The exoskeleton was breaking down. Warning lights flashed across his HUD. Hydraulics failing. Power reserves in the red. Every step was an agony of shrieking metal. His arms shook, muscles burning beneath the frame. Leora stirred weakly. Her breath rattled. She tried to lift her head. Why? She whispered. Why do this? Human soldier, why save enemy? Elias forced his legs to keep moving. The evac beacon was still a day away. He doubted he could make it, but he refused to stop. Because you're not the enemy, he said finally. You're just someone who needs help. And I can't walk away from that. Her eyes shone, tears cutting through the ash on her face. She reached up, her hand trembling, and touched the scar on his jaw. No one ever carried me, she whispered. Not once. Only chains. Elias' throat tightened. He said nothing, only shifted her carefully as the exoskeleton stumbled forward, one grinding step after another. By the time the evac zone came into sight, Elias was half delirious. His HUD flickered with error codes. The exoskeleton's frame buckled, sparks spitting from torn cables. He could barely see through sweat and ash. But the sight of the dropship hovering low in the smoke was enough. He collapsed at the loading ramp, falling to his knees, but refusing to let go of Leora. Medics swarmed them, voices shouting, hands trying to pry her from his arms. Elias resisted until he was sure she was safe in their care. Only then did he let his grip loosen, his vision tunneling to black. When Elias woke days later in the medbay, his body felt broken in half. But his first thought wasn't of himself. Leora, he rasped. The medic at his side hesitated. The girl you brought back? She's alive. Barely, but alive. She keeps asking for you. Elias' eyes closed in relief. Later, when she was strong enough to sit up, he saw her again. No chains now. Her fragile body was wrapped in clean linens, her veins glowing faintly under her skin. When she saw him, she smiled, a trembling, small thing, but real. You fool, she whispered, echoing her first words to him. But this time, her voice held no protest. Only gratitude. Elias sat beside her, the ghost of a smile tugging his scarred face. Worth it. She reached out, her hand finding his. Their fingers laced together, fragile but firm. 3 days. 3 impossible days. And somehow, carrying her through fire and ruin had carried them both into something new, something that felt like hope.